Hello, it's Volk. Time to enjoy card making with me. Today I will show you how to make a card where you see a stamped image both on and under a used die cut. I used a large background stamp that I placed diagonally on the card using one of my quilt sketches. Here you see the background stamp from AlinaCraft. You can of course take any background stamp that you like. As text I used the layering happy birthday dies. Happy birthday to you. And here are my quilt dies. I've used them so many times. I can't say often enough how handy and useful they are. While working I keep them in a magnetic tray so they don't get lost. For the finishing touch I use these dewdrops, although you can also use glitter or sequins or gems of course. And on my desk you can also already see the colors I'm going to work with. Let's get started. For this sketch I'm using two shapes. That's the smallest triangle, this one. And I'm using the smallest shape of the diamonds. You can see that it's this one. For that I need 3 triangles and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 diamonds. These I'm going to die cut out of smooth white paper. Here are the die cuts I need, and I want to ink blend these in rainbow colors. To make this easy to do, I did the following. I sprayed the transparent sheet with glue spray. I sprayed in a box, because otherwise the whole room would be covered in glue of course, but outside is also possible. After a few minutes of waiting, this sheet became sticky, and then it looks like this. Now you see here my sheet, and it's already a bit older and used very often, but it still works fine. This sticky sheet fits exactly in my stamp tool. I cut it to size. And you need 2 of them. I pick up the ink I want to use. To make a rainbow, you really only need a red, yellow and blue. And I added some extra purple. Now I'm sticking the die cuts in the right position in the stamping tool. I use the lines to stick the shapes straight. It's important that they fit exactly. You can see that they stick easily, but also that they are easy to detach again. Now these triangles are still crooked, so I take my T-ruler and use it to straighten them. Now I'm going to ink blend the dies with the blending brushes from AlinaCraft. The purple ink will be on the top and bottom later, but I'm starting with yellow. The yellow ink is the lightest in color and therefore has the greatest chance of getting dirty. I want these 3 parts to be yellow. The die cut shapes stay nicely in place, blending into a nice even shade all at once. Then I blend the red part and I let this run over a piece of yellow ink. You can see that the ink automatically becomes orange because it mixes together. Purple will go at the top. And then I take blue. Also this blue goes partly over the yellow part, so this piece becomes green. And at the bottom, again purple. I want a little more red at the top and a little more blue at the bottom, so I go over it again, until I'm satisfied. Now the idea is to stamp on top of this. I remove the background stamp from the acetate sheet and look carefully at the leaves so I don't stamp them upside down. This stamp is continuous, so I could also lay it down horizontally and then make the bottom part continuous by moving and stamping again. But I'm choosing to lay it down diagonally now. I look for this to be parallel to each other and for it to be equally spaced on all sides. This corner might be quite a small problem, but I'm going to try it. Now we're going to stamp with the same ink colors in the same spot. The yellow ink in the middle, the purple above and below, the blue below and the red one at the top. And we start again with the lightest color. So I stamp with yellow first on the middle part of the stamp. Then I'm going to feather the transition a little bit with a makeup sponge so that the edges aren't that sharp. And then I stamp the stamp. This yellow is very light, so you can't see it very well, but there will be more layers on top. Now I continue with the red and blue, and I also feather them with a sponge, a different sponge for each color. When you would stamp with a black ink, you'd see results in one go, but I like to do it the harder way. I want it a little darker. For that I clean the gradient part, so I don't dirty my yellow ink. Unfortunately, I forgot to do it once, so yes, that ink is already dirty. The transition between blue and yellow becomes green, because I now dab the sponges on it. You can also do this with blending brushes. For extra contrast, I add some purple at the top and bottom. You can continue adding ink until you are satisfied. With the colored sponge, you can add some accents. I'm satisfied with this. Now we leave the background stamp in the stamp tool. I cut the card a little larger than 15 centimeters. Now we want to stamp the background stamp on the panel. Now the second plastic sheet comes in handy. It's helpful if this one is also sticky, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Place this sheet under the first sheet and slide the card between the two plastic sheets. You can see from the lines if it lies straight, and from the dies if you have put it in the right place. Now you can also see that the paper is slightly larger, but that doesn't matter, so we can cut it off later. The top sheet comes off. Now my second line sheet does not stick, but this card we can attach to the corners with magnets. I use the rest ink first, that way I can see where the colors are. I wipe the stamp clean a little bit. And now I stamp the pattern full the same way I did on the shapes. So we start with yellow in the middle, blue at the bottom, red at the top and some purple at the very top and bottom. With the sponge I spread the ink a bit where it should blend in. Through the lines I can exactly see where my paper should be, because of the stickiness of the stamp is stronger than the magnets. Now we have stamped both the card panel and the die cuts. I want to glue the dies on, but as it is now I find it too dull. To give the dies some more contrast and depth, I'm going to ink the edges with black ink. I use the water-based black memento ink. I carefully stroke the edges of the die cut with a blending tool. And I do this with all the edges of all the dies. So now they're all black at the edges. I think it looks nicer already. And now I'm going to glue the shapes onto the card panel. I always find it handy to use my silicone mat when I glue. We start at the top with gluing. You can also see that the pattern is continuous. Also make sure you have the right side up so the color runs through. Now I take my T-ruler. I can see from the pattern if I am gluing in the right place, but with the ruler I can also be sure it is straight. I spray the sticky plastic mat clean with water and dry it. You can also rinse it under the tap. And when it's dry, you can use it again. I now cut off the bottom edge. My card is 10.5 centimeters by 15.5 centimeters. I want a black piece of paper on it that is half a centimeter narrower. So this one will be 10 by 15 centimeters. It fits right on top of it, you see. And on top of this comes my panel. I measure it with a pencil. I don't want the black border to be too big. By putting a pencil line, I can see exactly how far I need to cut. I tape the panel up with double-sided tape. I always find that the most pleasant way to tape a panel. By just pulling off the corners, you can still move around a bit before permanently taping it in place. Alina sells this tape in different widths. I try to link all products in the description below or next to the video, depending on what device you are watching YouTube on. Have you already subscribed to my channel Sis Volk? I would love to get more followers to share my creations with. A thumbs up and a comment also help a lot to get my videos visibility. As you can see, I adhere the panel to the double folded card in the same way. I'm going to use these Happy Birthday to You dies. They consist of 3 different layers. I'm not going to use all of them. I'm just going to take Happy Birthday and then just the top 2 layers. For dies with such narrow thin shapes, it is easiest to glue when you use double-sided adhesive sheets. I glue one piece to black paper. To do this, I pull a small piece loose on one side, fold it over, place it on the piece of paper and line it up with the paper on the other side. And when it's in place, only then do I glue it down. Slowly I pull the back of the tape loose as I stick it to the paper. You can keep the remaining backing for other usage. Then I smooth it out with a bone folder. Do this only on the side where the tape is, so as not to damage the paper. And repeat this for a strip of white paper. You see, the sticky part is on the right side. I put the non-sticky side on the paper first and only when it's straight do I tape it down and pull the back of the adhesive film away. Make sure you die cut on the right side of the paper with the adhesive film on the bottom. I die cut the thinnest letters from the white paper and the slightly thicker second layer from the black paper. Before I put the shapes through my die cut machine, I cut the pieces to size first. This way I keep the rest beautiful for another time. The white paper I want to make shiny. With my Nouveau Aqua Shimmer, I color the paper shiny. If you look closely, you can see the shimmer that's now over it. It's water-based, so it has to dry for a while. When it is dry, I die cut out the text. It's best if the letters stick in the die cut form, because then you can put the die exactly on the lower form and press it. That didn't work with these white letters, so I had to stick them on manually. I find this easiest to do with an ordinary long needle. With a clear block I press the letters firmly. For the happy I managed to leave the die cut in the shape. I removed the foil from the back and now I can place the shape exactly on the paper of the previous die and align it nicely. I want the text in this position on the card. As you can see, because of the die cuts underneath, it's not evenly spaced. I have a solution for that. I take a piece of black paper with double-sided tape on it that I have left over and cut small pieces from it to stick under the letter. These have the same thickness as the die cuts underneath. It's a lot of fiddling, so I find working with the needle quite handy. I use my T-ruler again to stick the strip straight. The B of birthday I stick together with the triangles. Happy goes above it. You can also glue this text raised with foam tape or more layers of dies. And now for the envelope. I mask part of the envelope. The part where I want to color, I leave free. Today I'm using post-it tape. For an edge like this, it doesn't need to be completely covered. When you take a moment to mask a nice straight line, you will benefit from a nicer result. I make a similar rainbow as a background and stamp over this with the same gradient of color. I make a similar rainbow as a background. I stamp over this rainbow ink blended strip, still with the masking on the envelope, with the same gradient of color. It turned out quite nice this way. As an extra I add some dewdrops. Gives a nice shimmer to the card. Pasting in threes always works pretty well. Let's make another card. Same idea, but different sketch. The stamp is still in the stamping tool. I stamped another panel in the same spot, in the same way as before. This technique is useful if you have created a nice background panel that has a small mistake in it that you want to hide. Now we put the panel in the exact same spot, but on an underlaying checkered sheet. I had laid it down 1, 2, 3 cubes from the top and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cubes from the left. I counted the same distance as before, so it would be in the same spot. 3 from the top and 5 from the left. On top of this we put the sticky checker sheet. You can attach it with a magnet if you want. Because it's translucent, we can see where we want the shapes to be, and we can also see where the stamp will be. I die cut 3 large squares, 3 medium squares and 3 smaller squares. For the large squares I used the inner shape. I leave a border of the background stamp on both the top and bottom of the dies, so I don't glue the dies evenly to the print of the stamp. I start at the top and then at the bottom, so that the middle part falls parallel to the middle. This way I fill the whole pattern. And again I use my T-ruler to stick the dies on as straight as possible. Then I stamp again several times as I did before on the panel with the same colors. And with the makeup sponge I blend the colors nicely. Now we can glue the die cuts on the panel, but before we do that I want to make the edges black with Memento ink. I forgot to make the edges black on another card, and you will see that it gives a completely different effect. Also beautiful, but different. Because the design is on the dies, I can see exactly where to glue them. You don't need much ink to ink the edges. This is a matter of practice. Tweezers are very handy for gluing smaller die cuts. You can see that I am now using my clear block to align the shapes. When it's in the right place, I place my clear block on top of it to press it down. I continue this way until all the shapes are in place. I use the clear block to align the shapes and see if they are glued on straight. The protruding parts I cut off. I then glue these to a panel with a piece of black paper in between that's half a centimeter larger than the panel and half a centimeter smaller than the card. Here I also glued text on. Made the letters shiny as well, and again I add some shiny dewdrops. And also with this card I decorate the envelope. For the envelope this time I stamp the flap. To mask the lower part, I quickly use the second plastic checkered sheet. I stamp the envelope in matching gradient colors. And I do that again in the same way. You can see that the envelope matches the card well. I also ink the edge of the envelope black, so that it fits even better. And here you see the finished card. Same technique, same idea, but yet different because of the square shapes I used. Here I show some of the cards I've made. They have small differences. You can immediately see that the envelopes differ. One has a border on the front, the other has a decorated flap on the back. On this first card I used a little more ink when blending and stamping. And you can see that on the left card I glued on the text Happy raised, and on this right one I just glued it on low. Do you see the difference? Then I made this third card. Here we also masked the border on the envelope, blended it and stamped it. Here I didn't ink blend the edges of the die cuts black. I also didn't use black paper, but I stamped directly on the card, as I did for this card. In fact, with this one, I stamped on thin paper first and glued it to a black panel before gluing it to the card. I also blended the stamped layer under the text with ink in red and blue, instead of using black. And this last card has a totally different pattern. I did print the stamp diagonally, just like the other cards, but again with the black borders. And I glued a black panel between the card and the panel. I made this card without ink blending before stamping, so it looks different again. I could have glued the word happy raised on it. The products I used in the video are listed in the description. You will find affiliate links to AlinaCraft store on AliExpress. I get a small commission if you buy something, but it doesn't cost you anything extra. I hope you enjoyed seeing this technique and also hope you enjoy trying it out yourself. Give it a thumbs up and write something nice in the comments. That always makes me very happy. I will see you next time. Bye bye!